Well, for more on the presidential polls being held in Burundi, our contributing editor, that's Vuyo Mvoko, is live to us from Bujumbura now. Good afternoon, Vuyo. Are you with us?
Good afternoon, Kesh. Yes, indeed.
Vuyo, we understand that the vote count is underway. How is that progressing so far?
Well, yes, indeed. Currently underway is, of course, the counting process, we are told, but we were expecting to speak to the Electoral Commission round about now, but we have just been told that they will speak to us around 6 o'clock this afternoon, because by then they hope to have a much better sense of where things are than is the case at the moment. So in another 3 hours or so, we will indeed be speaking to the chairperson of the Electoral Commission of Burundi. Kesh?
Vuyo, are there any security concerns at this point?
At the moment, no. And both the ruling party but also the missions that are here that are very close to processes here tell us that this is what Burundi tend to do. Those that are not supportive of the poll we saw that took place yesterday and the parliamentary elections that took place last month, as well as other milestones in the run-up to this election. They say there is a tendency whenever something is about to happen, somewhere people agitate, and then you see people burning tires on the streets, pelting the police or soldiers with stones. But once that big occasion or function is over, things die down again. And their reading of it is that it is those who are opposed to those processes, like really creating a sense of panic, whereafter just everything just simply dying away or dying down, and the situation getting back to normal. So from yesterday, unlike the day before, where we had some shootings and bombings and so on, overnight nothing. We've heard of nothing or no incident whatsoever, and up until now no incident has been reported.
Vuyo, when these protests first erupted a few months ago now, there was a social media blackout in place, whereby mobile access to platforms like WhatsApp, Twitter and Facebook, they were all blocked. How are local media covering these elections, and is that social media blackout, is it still in place?
Well, yes, indeed. The bannings of certain media do remain in force, and the government here is unapologetic about it. They believe that some of those outlets were in cahoots with the soldiers that attempted a coup, but they believe, the government that is, believes that they are also guilty of other atrocities, and they say that there the law should take its course, but they are not changing their minds about the banning orders that have been served on some of those organizations and outlets. But with regard, of course, the opposition says that is precisely what they have been talking about, that this election or these elections can hardly be seen to have been fair, free and transparent, precisely because certain radio stations were closed down. There wasn't free movement. There was no freedom of speech. These outlets remain shut down. So you cannot then say that the atmosphere was indeed conducive to a free and fair election. So that situation remains, but as far as the East Africa community of nations are concerned, this election could go ahead. You will recall that the African Union, the United Nations, they did condemn those acts, and they did demand an atmosphere that they believe would be conducive to free and fair election, but so far nothing has changed. In fact, we were talking about it this morning. The United Nations has sent observers. We don't know what those observers are going to say post these elections in their respective reports. But so far, they seem to have toned down a bit. If you listened or you read the speech of the UN's Secretary General Ban Ki-moon the day before the election, it did sort of perhaps somewhat grudgingly acknowledge that the election is indeed going to go ahead, but basically asked Burundi to sit down after the election and find a way forward that will actually try and accommodate everyone. In other words, the ruling party shouldn't be arrogant. The ruling party should try and be magnanimous and reach out to the opposition and find a way of bringing the opposition on board. They were looking at some kind of a government of national unity. But from the conversations where we just came from, we were having a conversation with some leaders, opposition leaders. They are having none of it. They say they simply do not recognize yesterday's election, and what they are going to tell the East Africa community of nations is that they want a new election. The government has already said, of course, the governing party, that is, the CNDD-FDD, has already said that that is not going to happen.
All right, Vuyo, the United States of America now weighing in here, threatening to impose sanctions on some of the leaders. What's been the reaction on that one from Burundi's leadership thus far? If there's been any at all, that is.
A couple of hours ago, and this is what we're going to have in the stories that we'll be sending you a little later. We did speak to the Minister of Foreign Affairs here in Burundi, who says he doesn't understand where the United States of America is coming from, because everything that has been said and done up until now has been communicated throughout. Those who were opposed to the elections or parts of this election, in particular the presidential election, from taking place, were told what the ruling party and the government's position is. Now, to now say after the fact that we're not going to recognize this and we're going to impose sanctions, the government and the ruling party say that that is in fact in bad faith. What were they hoping for? But also, to use the words of the Minister of Foreign Affairs, the government has committed no crime. As far as they understand it, you impose sanctions when people are guilty of a crime. The election, both the parliamentary and yesterday's presidential elections, were done according to the law of the country. And the test, they say, is that because when everyone was in doubt as to whether the government was right or the opposition was right, they say, the Minister of Foreign Affairs says the matter was put before the Constitutional Court, and the Constitutional Court ruled on this matter, and they said, yes, President Pierre Nkurunziza could run for another term. So now that that verdict didn't go according to what other people, including the opposition, would have wanted, they are crying foul. Of course, the opposition, on the other hand, says, look, the reason you got the verdict you got from the Constitutional Court is precisely because you intimidated members of the judiciary. The deputy head of the Constitutional Court is out of the country as we speak. So it really depends on who you're speaking to. Those who are pro what has been happening are saying we've done everything according to the book. It's just that the people who are opposed to this don't like what they are seeing now. But of course, the opposition and other foreign institutions or multi-party other institutions like the EU don't like what they saw, so they are also crying foul. So it's Cash.
Thank you, Vuyo.
It's that situation. We don't know what's going to happen next. It's really going to depend on whether the government is magnanimous enough to see some form of accommodation of all these other forces that are opposed to what it is doing. And it also depends, of course, on whether whatever the government will be putting on the table will be acceptable to those that remain opposed to it.
Thank you, Vuyo. Our contributing editor, Vuyo Mvoko. Mvoko, coming to us live from Bujumbura, where he's tracking Burundi's presidential polls fast. The vote count, of course, underway there with no imminent security threats or concerns right now. We'll be keeping a close eye on those polls, so do stay tuned for further updates.